Okay, so just complying with Article 1, Section 13 of the Texas Constitution, I'm broadcasting this on YouTube. All right, Kelly, are you ready? All right, so the court will call cause number 323-108-607-18. We're here on two matters. One is a motion to modify possessory conservatorship filed by Ms. Barrows, and an original petition and intervention for termination filed by Ms. Hughes on behalf of the Ingebrigtsens. So here present representing the interveners is Ms. Hughes. We do have Ms. Barrows here present as attorney for the father. Mr. Daniel is also present as attorney for the mother. We have Ms. Neighbors, who is representing the Department of Family and Protective Services. And I believe Mr. Freeman is here as the attorney ad litem for the child. We are conducting this session via Zoom to comply with the 17th emergency order by the Supreme Court of Texas that prohibits in-person sessions in court. So, all right, so I guess, well, Ms. Hughes, I think you filed first, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with you as a petitioner on this one.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll call Lauren.
Yeah, before we, and then so what I would like to do is, I mean, I don't think there's a clear guideline on how to do things like this when there's multiple things being pled. I'm going to go ahead and kind of, as a placeholder with Ms. Hughes, urging her motion, but then afterwards we can wrap around and go a second round on the motion to modify possessory conservator, Ms. Barrows, just so you know where everything fits in. Does that sound fair?
Well, Your Honor, I have concern because I don't have a copy of Ms. Barrows' petition. And could you email it to me while we're waiting or we're here, Leslie?
Yes.
And so I'm not ready to proceed, Your Honor, until I have proper notice.
Oh, I understood. So what I want to do is right now we'll proceed with your petition, right? Since you filed first, and then what we'll do is we'll go a second round as far as the motion to modify. Does that make sense? So in theory, we're doing two separate hearings, but one at a time. So right now, technically we're doing the petition and intervention, then we will hear the motion to modify, and then the court can render judgment. Does that sound like an efficient organization?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So Ms. Hughes, you were saying you're calling a witness.
Yes, I'm calling Lauren Seamonen.
Okay. Ms. Simeon, how are you? You can turn on your microphone. Fantastic. If you raise your right hand. Well, okay. Do you solemnly swear that, well, you can raise your hand again. You solemnly swear, do you swear that in the testimony you're about to give that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
Correct.
All right, thank you. You can lower your hand. All right, so here's a question. Did anybody want to make, Ms. Hughes, did you want to start with opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Tyler has been in his current placement for, I believe, 18 months, almost 18 months. And while the court heard the evidence 7 months ago, Your Honor, the facts haven't changed. Tyler has some special needs that are being addressed in the placement in the foster home. And I'll be calling my client as a witness to go over those conditions that he has. And I'll be asking the court today to either grant the termination based on the evidence that you've already heard, naming the department as the permanent managing conservator. And the alternative, Your Honor, I'm asking the court to name my clients as the permanent managing conservator without termination. The evidence that the court heard at the prior trial shows that the appointment of either parent as a permanent managing conservator would significantly impair that child's physical health or emotional well-being.
All right. Ms. Neighbors, did you want to make the opening or are you okay?
I mean, I think I'll rely on my predecessor's opening for, I guess, the original trial. As Ms. Hughes stated, we, we did hold a trial in October of last year on this, so I'm going to rely on what occurred during that trial.
Daniel?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. I think the facts would show that there have been a lot of changes since this case was originally tried, and that termination should not be granted, and that the child should be placed with the relatives in California.
Barrows?
Yes, Your Honor, the termination was not granted at that time. You were made aware that there were possible relatives available for a home study. There has been a delay in that home study. We're asking today that the relatives from California, which would be my client's brother and sister-in-law, be able to care for Tyler, and that he be able to leave in the state of Texas with them, and they're here in town to have the child with them.
All right, Mr. Freeman?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, I believe it's in Tyler's best interest to remain in the state of Texas, even if the parental rights were terminated and he placed in the care for the relatives living out in California. During this time, he's been diagnosed with autism. And with autism, Tyler's going to need to know exactly where he's going to be going, exactly where he's going to be doing, and keep and maintain a routine. I believe the evidence will be put in that there's been significant care taken in planning for Tyler's future in California. However, that relies upon a system in California to have everything put in place before he gets there, not just when he has the opportunity to get there. So I'd ask the court take that in consideration.
All right, Ms. Hughes, I've sworn in your witness. Please proceed.
Thank you. Lauren, you're still muted.
Sorry.
Thank you. Please state your name.
Lauren Simeon.
And Ms. Simeon, are you employed by OCOK?
Yes, I am.
And so how long have you been Tyler's caseworker?
I've been Tyler's caseworker for 2 years.
For how long?
For about 2 years.
Okay, so since he came into care, were you the first CVS worker?
Yes, I've been the only worker, CVS worker.
Okay. And at the trial back in October, did the department ask the court to terminate the parent-child relationship?
Yes.
And is that still the department's position that you're asking that the parent-child relationship of both parents be terminated?
Yes.
And do you believe that that's in Tyler's best interest?
Yes.
At what point did knowledge of the Leibovich family come in?
It was prior to the trial, so it was a few months prior to the trial when we knew we were going to trial. We asked Andrew and Bobby if they had any relatives, and that's when we had. That's when he gave us Matthew and Karen for relatives.
And they've been studied, is that correct?
That's correct.
And originally, isn't it true that the department had their own motion to modify possessory set about a month ago?
Yes.
And why did the department withdraw that motion?
It was withdrawn so that Tyler would be able to have more transitional visits with the relatives.
Okay. What kind of transition would the department want to see if the court were inclined to grant Ms. Barrow's motion?
We just wanted to have more visits. At the time, that was the only thing that was. And
Your volume's coming in and out, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know what happened, but if you can just say that again.
Yes, okay. So we wanted to have more virtual visits because that was what was only allowed at the time. And then they had a face-to-face visit today due to the order being uplifted June 1st.
Ms. Simeon, you said they had a what?
A face-to-face visit today. They were able to have their, well, this would be their third visit in person.
Did you supervise that visit?
No, my HST supervised the visit.
What supervised the visit?
The HST supervised the visit.
If Judge Kim were inclined to grant Ms. Barrow's motion, what kind of transition is the department recommending?
We would like for Tyler to be placed Thursday with the relatives.
With no transition?
He's already had visits with them. We don't have any concerns that they won't do what's right for Tyler.
Okay. I have no more questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Favors?
Yes, thank you, Lauren. Lauren, I see there's an open door behind you. Is it possible that you could close that?
Oh, yes, sorry.
I think it might be causing a little bit of volume issues. Thanks, Lauren. All right, Lauren, you testified that the department wouldn't need a transition in order to place Tyler. Are there any concerns about moving him during the pandemic?
At this time, we don't have any concerns. We're able to transport him to California.
To the best of your knowledge, has California indicated that they may quarantine Tyler when he gets there?
Yes.
How long would that quarantine last?
14 days.
How many visits took place in between the last hearing and now with the relatives in California?
They've had visits weekly on Thursdays and Fridays up until this hearing. And then they had one today, a face-to-face visit today.
To the best of your knowledge, were those visits appropriate?
Yes.
Do you have any concerns?
No, I don't have any concerns. The relatives are aware that Tyler is autistic and they've been actively looking into schools and wanting his routine and all the appropriate information to be able to properly care for Tyler.
Have you consulted with Tyler's medical and psychological care providers about this transition?
I have not.
Okay, pass the witness, Your Honor.
Freeman?
Now, Ms. Simeon, you've received the interstate compact placement request, is that correct?
Correct.
And have you reviewed that with your supervisor?
Yes, I have.
And was that home study approved?
Yes, it was.
And that is for the paternal relatives, Matthew and Karen, is that correct?
Yes.
And have you also had conversations with Matthew and Karen about their residence and the room that they have set up for their nephew, Tyler?
Yes.
Have you seen pictures that they've submitted to you via email?
I have not viewed pictures.
Okay. Do they have a plan in place for taking care of their nephew, given the history and the recent diagnosis of autism?
Yes.
And they are more than willing to accommodate whatever his needs are, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And this is there are no other children in this residence, is that correct, in California?
Correct.
And they're willing to give 100% of their attention to their nephew, is that correct?
That's correct.
And isn't it true, Karen, Ms. Rahi is actually a registered nurse?
Yes.
And You're showing no concerns of any of the visitation that's occurred between Matthew and Karen and Tyler, is that correct?
Correct.
Pass the witness.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Simeon, so is it your understanding that both the mother and the father are in favor of placing the child with the relatives in California?
Yes.
Okay. And that is your preference now too, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But now you also said you're still in favor of terminating the parental rights. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, do you think the mother is better off today than she was when we had this trial?
I do.
Okay. And my understanding, well, this may change with all the changes that took place, but would it still be the policy or would it be the policy of your organization to work with the parent until a final decision is rendered?
Correct.
Okay. And so you've been keeping in touch some with my client?
Yes.
Bobby? Okay. And just briefly, how is she better off today than she was when we originally had a trial?
Bobby is doing well. She's been employed since we've had the trial. She's been clean since we've had trial in October. She's present for visitation, and she keeps in contact with me. She's been doing well.
Okay. So would you say she's a mother who cares about her child?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Judge, I think that's all the questions I have of Ms. Simeon right now. Thank you.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes, Your Honor. What is the department's current plan how to transport the child if the judge was to sign an order today going to California?
The plan would be for us to transport him. Well, I'll be transporting him to California. If it's signed, then the earliest we have to have 2 days notice. So the earliest we would be able to transport him is Thursday of this week.
Okay, will it be by bus, car, or plane?
It will be by plane, sorry.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, have you known if Tyler's ever been transported in a plane before?
He hasn't.
Okay. And what type of precautions would the department take for him to be transported on that plane?
Well, I'll be caring for him. I would make sure that he's safe. I'll make sure that he feels comfortable. I would also, take any advice from the foster parents if they have any to keep them comfortable.
Have you ever transported an autistic child on a plane before?
I haven't.
Okay. Would you be willing to reach out to people within the department that may have done that before?
Yes, I will.
And you'd be willing to do that as quickly as possible, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you previously testified that there would be 14 days worth of quarantine, correct?
Yes.
How would that quarantine be? Would you be staying with the children? Where would the quarantine be? And who would be taking care of the child?
Well, I won't be with him. I was told from a worker from the ICPC department that there is a possibility that California may want him to be quarantined. And if so, then there will be discussed with the relatives for someone to be home with him for 14 days.
Okay. And as to Ms. DeGarro, how has her visitation been over the last 30 days?
Visitation has gone well. She's been attentive to Tyler. She's always wanting to know, what he's learning next, what he's learning new, and wanting to, take pictures. She's always been real adamant of wanting face-to-face visits during the pandemic. So they've been going great.
Has she missed any of her visitation times?
She has missed visits, prior to the last trial.
prior to the last trial, but she's missed visitations afterwards, correct?
She's missed 2 visits, I believe. It was 2 visits that she missed, but she did explain why she wasn't able to make those 2 visits.
And that's in the last couple, about the last 60 days, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That's the witness, Chairman.
Ms. Hughes,
I have no more questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Neighbors,
Whoa, no questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Barrows,
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Daniel,
Just a couple, Your Honor. Ms. Simeon, on these missed visits, you said my client provided an explanation. Did it seem reasonable to you?
Yes. I can't remember the first one, sorry, but I know for sure the last time she missed a visit, she explained that she overslept.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Freeman,
So she explained that she had missed 1 visit due to oversleeping. What was the reason for the other visit?
I'm going to object to facts not in evidence. I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry.
Your Honor, that was the same exact question that Mr. Daniels just asked as to 1.
right, there's just
Okay.
1 visit that she missed. And Mr. Daniel, you asked if it went over, what was the reason for that? And Mr. Freeman's, your question was related to the other visits that she didn't miss?
No, the visits that she did miss, there were 2, Your Honor.
Okay,
And Your Honor, I didn't hear her say that there was anything about oversleeping. If she did, I missed it.
I just remember hearing, okay, so your objection is,
Is assuming a fact not in evidence.
okay. Mr. Freeman, do you want to rephrase the question?
Yes. Did Ms. DeGarro state the reasons why she missed those 2 visits?
Yes. So I said that the first visit, I can't recall why she missed, but the second visit that was recent, she stated that she overslept.
Okay, and what time were those visits?
The visits are from 9 a.m. to 10, but that visit was rescheduled with the phone.
That's the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes?
I have no more questions of this witness, and I'm ready to call my next witness.
Well, we still have to give everyone a chance to cross.
Oh, sorry.
All right, Ms. Neighbors,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Barrows,
No questions.
Mr. Daniel.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Simeon. Ms. Hughes, please call your next witness.
Thank you. I call Shannon Ingebrigtsen.
Okay, Ms. Ingebrigtsen.
Hi.
You raise your right hand for me. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now, if you could, I don't know if you're a soft-spoken person or if you're just far from the microphone. It was really hard to hear you say yes.
Both things. Okay.
All right, thank you. And could you please spell your first name for us?
SHANNON.
Okay, and your last name is just like it's spelled on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Ms. Hughes, please proceed.
Thank you. Shannon, how old is Tyler?
He turned 3 March 1st.
And how old was he when he was placed in your home?
He was 18 months.
So he's been
Hold
in
on.
your home.
I heard 18 months and I didn't hear what you said after that.
Sorry. September 29th. So he was just about 18 months old.
So would you agree that he's been half his life in your home?
Over half his life.
Okay. And is he verbal?
No, he's not.
How does he express his wants and desires?
We can tell by the noises he makes. He leads us, like by taking our hands and showing us what he wants. And so we've just been able, we just can tell now.
What led to your family going through different doctors to find a diagnosis? What prompted that?
The CPS investigator who dropped him off said that the grandmother had told her that she thought he might be autistic. And we just noticed over the next few months differences between him and other kids. And also our ECI therapist, who we started seeing in December 2018, said that she thought he might be autistic. And so we started testing him after that.
Will you give the court examples of how the autism or other behaviors manifest?
Yeah. When he first came to us, he never looked anybody in the eyes. He had what they call flat face. And so he didn't express emotions, smile. He would run through our house. He would just run from his bedroom to the kitchen and back and forth over and over and over again. And our ECI therapist saw that, and she said that that seemed like a definite sign. He never responded to his name, and everyone said that we needed to get his hearing checked. So we did do that multiple times. There were just, yeah, you could just tell, like, you would ask him a question and he would not respond. And even now he responds to certain things, but other things there's just still not understanding. So yes, those were some.
Is he able to go to the toilet alone?
No.
Is he potty trained in any sort of way? What kind of therapy, if any, is Tyler in?
Can you ask that last question again? Is he what in any way?
Potty trained in any way?
No.
What kind of therapy, if any, is Tyler in?
We did ECI therapy until he aged out at 3. We were doing speech therapy, which finished up on March, I believe 12th, because we were going to put him into school full time, March 6th.
Non-responsive.
I'm sorry?
There's an objection, non-responsive.
May I respond, Your Honor? My question to the witness was the different kinds of therapies that, if any, that the child was in are being accessed.
And she started talking about times and appointments, and I think it's
Okay.
over-responsive. So it meets non-responsive. That's the statement.
I'm sorry.
Okay. How many different kinds of doctors does Tyler have? And what do they treat him for?
He has a pediatrician. We have the doctor who diagnosed him with autism at the Child Study Center. And I think, and a dentist. He has a dentist. So there's 3 doctors.
Is Tyler on any medication?
He takes iron for an iron deficiency, melatonin to help him sleep at night. And then we give him Miralax or fiber supplements for constipation, and then allergy medicine, just like over the counter.
And all the over-counter medicines that you mentioned, including the melatonin, were those done at a physician's directive?
Yes, yes.
How does Tyler react to change in his routine?
Not great. It just kind of depends on the day, but he will, if he's really upset, he will hit himself in the head, and he's done that so hard that he's hurt himself, or he'll bang his head on the floor or the wall. And that's just when he gets very frustrated. So he appreciates a very strict, rigid routine.
And what reason did you and your husband decide to file an intervention in this case?
We really love Tyler, and I mean, there's no other way to say this, that we consider him like our child. We've, had him for 20 months. We care about him so much. We feel that we have a heart for autism, and we have all of the resources to take care of him. And trauma and autism mixed together, we believe would lead to PS or PTSD. And he has been through so much already.
What kind of training have you and your husband had in order to take care of a special needs child?
Well, ECI therapy was the beginning of that training. We did specific program for autism, speech therapy. They train the parents as well as to work with the children. And we actually are on a waiting list with the Child Study Center to go through a 2-week training class on how to, I guess, better help, a child with autism. And I'm sure there would be further training beyond that.
Are you asking the court to leave Tyler where he is today and name the department as the permanent managing conservator upon termination? And in the alternative, are you asking the court to name?
Ms. Hughes, I didn't hear a response to the question.
Yes.
Is your alternative request for you and your husband to be named permanent managing conservators without termination?
Yes.
I pass this witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Neighbors?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Ingebrigtsen. My name is Kim Neighbors, and I'm the attorney who now represents the FPS in this case. So I know that you were part of the trial with my predecessor, but I'd just like to touch on a few things. How is your relationship with the mother in this case?
I think it's been hard, ups and downs, but I think, we have communication via email. I think we've worked through some things, and so, I guess as good as it can be. This is just a really hard situation.
You heard testimony about Tyler traveling if he is placed in California. Has he ever traveled with you before?
Yes, he has.
Could you say that again?
Yes, he has.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, I just want to make sure we're getting a good record here. So if you can speak up as loudly as you possibly can, but don't yell. How did he react to that travel?
He did really well, actually. We had him in a stroller through the airport. He watched his favorite Cookie Monster show on the plane. And that really helps him a whole lot. And also he knows us and trusts us. So he doesn't have any reason to worry. So he did really well.
How did you travel?
On plane.
Okay. How long was the flight?
I believe 3.5 hours, 4 hours.
Okay. And you were able to kind of keep him calm during that flight?
Yes.
Do you believe that that is due to your familiarity with him and his familiarity with you?
Yes.
Do you have any other children in your home?
No.
Have you ever been a foster parent to another child?
Nope. He's our first one.
So is this your first experience with autism as well?
Yes.
Now, you said you went and sought out a doctor specifically for his diagnosis. Were you guided through that process by your adoption agency or the department, or was that something you explored on your own?
ECI actually guided us through that.
And just, for a little clarification, you said that he's aged out of ECI?
Yes.
Have you been able to find suitable replacement services for him?
Well, that was kind of the issue. He was supposed to start school full-time March 16th, and that is when COVID hit and they shut down schools. we did not pursue speech therapy. We had ended speech therapy. We did not pursue it because just as many people can attest here, he does not pay attention to a computer screen. He looks at himself. It wasn't very effective.
Have you, let's see, so you indicated he would begin school in March. Has he ever been in school or daycare?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Have you ever left Tyler with anyone but yourself? And how did he react to that situation?
Well, he gets very upset when we leave him. And so we try to put him down. If it's at night for like around his bedtime, we put him down before we leave so that he's not upset. Or if it's not his bedtime, we try to put on a little show to transition, or we ask the person to, and so we have to.
Somebody's computer chimed in. So
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear what you said. You said you had to. And
yes, we just have to figure out things so that he's not upset when we leave. But he does well for the most part after we leave.
Would you describe Tyler's life as incredibly structured?
I would say we really try hard, yes.
Would you describe his routines as strict?
Yes.
And is that for the benefit of him regarding his autism diagnosis?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you had a chance to be present for the visitation with the Leiboviches?
We did them over Zoom, so we've been present for the past few weeks, yes.
So you said that Tyler does not do well with screens.
Right.
Was that true during the visit?
I would say so. I think he looked at himself more so. I mean, and we had to follow him around with the computer. And sometimes he'll hear something that gets him. He'll pay attention to the screen first.
Ma'am, there's somebody hit a microphone, so I couldn't hear what you said. Sometimes you have to, and I missed that.
Yeah, sometimes a noise will get his attention and he'll turn to the computer and maybe engage for a second. But for the most part, we did just follow him around with the computer. And I mean, I think the visits went well. I think they got to see Tyler play. But yes, he doesn't, I mean, he's 3 for one thing. And he likes to look at anything.
He likes to look at what?
The screen, the computer screen.
I'm not sure, forgive me if I'm asking you to repeat yourself, but would it be your intention to adopt Tyler if he were placed for adoption through the department?
Objection, relevance.
Yes. Yes.
Well, Ms. Neighbors' response?
The petition in intervention suggests that the child would be put up for adoption if the department's request to terminate the parent's rights is granted. So I believe it's relevant as far as the permanency plan for the child to see if this family would be adoption motivated.
Oh, Lord. I mean, I think your state of mind for adoption is an integral part of all these Title V cases. Don't go into detail, but for that question, you can answer that question. Ms. Ingrid Britton, are y'all adoption motivated?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Neighbors, please proceed.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Barrows.
Is it Inga Britson?
Inga Britson, yes.
Now, we had a final trial October 1st of 2019, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were there at the trial, correct?
Yes.
And then in May, several months later, you retained counsel. Is that correct?
We retained counsel in September before the trial, October 1st.
You had no pleadings on file until May of this year. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Now, you testified this is your first foster placement. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're aware that there are relatives available and have been available for Tyler. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you had any conversations with the uncle Matthew about taking care of Tyler?
Yes.
Have you had conversations with Matthew of how to take care of Tyler being diagnosed with autism?
Yes.
Have you also talked to Karen Mizrahi?
Yes.
And have those been positive conversations you've had about Tyler?
Yes.
And you've even testified that you've taken the child on the plane, correct, Tyler?
Yes.
And you've also watched and observed visits that the child has had with his uncle and Karen, correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as the pediatrician visits that Tyler's had, how many times have you had to take him to the hospital? To the doctor this year?
In 2020.
In 2020?
We've taken him twice this year.
Okay. And this year has he received any therapy for the past 6 months?
Yes.
Okay. And are there any continuing therapy appointments that are scheduled to go forward in the future that he's going to need follow-up care for?
Not at the moment, no.
Now, there was a visit today, is that correct?
Yes.
Were there any issues with the visit today between Tyler and Karen and his uncle Matthew?
No, not that I know of.
Ask the witness.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, do you have any kind of special medical training?
No.
Okay. How about your husband? Does he have any?
No.
Okay. And you said you have a heart for autism. Is that
Yes.
something you've had for a long time, or is that just something that's just developed since you've had this child?
Yeah, since we've had Tyler.
Okay. So, I mean, you weren't seeking an autistic child when
No.
placement. Okay. Your Honor, I think that's all I really have.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes, who was the primary person that would take Tyler to visits when we had in-person visits?
I did.
Okay, and let's go back to 2019, October. How were the visits with the parents back then? How was Tyler after?
He was fine.
Okay,
Okay, we didn't hear that, the answer to the question.
He was fine after the visits.
okay. And since he's been doing the Zoom visits, he's fine afterwards, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does Tyler sleep through the night?
For the most part, yes, but he'll go through periods where he doesn't.
Okay. Is there anything that would set him off towards those?
We actually have no idea why he wakes up sometimes.
Okay. If he was to stay here in your care, you have all of the services set up for him, correct?
Yes.
And you had testified that he was supposed to begin full-time school on March 16th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Has there been any indication from the school when it might resume?
Objection, hearsay.
Relevance about when school resumes.
I'm sorry.
Just the relevance of when school resumes.
Oh, Your Honor, just relevance of that is it was supposed to begin on March 16th. I was just asking when it would resume if the children, because the issue of the children remaining in their care, I'd want to know as the ad litem when that school was going to start.
I don't think there's a person in Texas that knows the answer to that question. Is that fair enough?
Your Honor, I don't believe there's a person in Texas. However, the school could have indicated when they were considering opening up.
It's still under the governor's orders. Like schools have not been given permission to plan that yet. Like no school district has an academic calendar for the next year. They've just indicated when they'd like to. I mean, if you want to answer when the school district would like to, but
okay.
Well, the child's not even old enough for public school yet. Is
No, Your Honor, it's 3.
3? Oh, for like a pre-K.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's answer the question. Did your school tell you anything about when the school academic calendar is this fall?
My sister is a pre-K teacher at the school Tyler was going to be starting at, and she's not sure what, but we were going to be moving forward with an ABA program at the Child Study Center. Is our that was our goal.
Mr. Freeman?
So you have an active plan in place if you were able to keep Tyler with you, correct?
Yes.
All right, pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes, what is an ABA curriculum or program?
It's applied behavioral analysis. That is specific to autism, where they receive one instruction and help.
Okay, can you please repeat it?
Yes.
Repeat answer, please.
It is applied behavioral analysis. They receive one-on-one instruction and teaching.
Is it directed towards autistic children?
Yes, it's specific to autism. Yes.
And no matter where Tyler may go, do you believe that that's something that he would need?
Yes.
And is that something that's provided by the school districts?
No.
I have no more questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Neighbors?
No questions, Your
Ms. Barrows?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Daniel?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Freeman?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hughes, please call your next witness.
I have no more witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Neighbors, any witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Barrows?
Yes, Your Honor. Matthew Leibovich.
All right. Ms. Leibovich, if you can please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, thank you. Please raise your right hand. All right, Ms. Barrows, please proceed.
Could you state your name, please?
Matthew Leibovich.
And what is your relationship to Tyler Leibovich?
I'm his uncle. I'm brothers with Andrew.
And Andrew is currently where?
He's in jail right now.
Okay. And you are wanting to have Tyler come to your home in California, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Is your brother in agreement with this?
Yes, we speak on the phone regularly.
Okay. And when did the process start for the home study that was done in California on your home where you live with Karen?
I think it was around December, if I remember that correctly.
And have you attended court before here in Tarrant County?
Yes, I came about a year ago.
And do you believe that you have a relationship with your nephew, Tyler?
Yes, he seems great. We saw him on many Zoom meetings, and seeing him in person was just fantastic. I mean, it was really good.
And you have a approved home study from the state of California, is that correct?
Correct.
And do you live in Los Angeles County?
Yes.
And Your Honor, at this time, I would like to the court to take judicial notice of the home study that had been on file with this court, the interstate compact placement request, and it's also attached as my exhibit A to my motion to modify.
So noted.
Your Honor, if we're going forward on the motion to modify, I believe I'm entitled to notice and service of the pleading, and I've checked my email. I haven't received it yet.
Right. So I've noted. Hold on. I've noted that this is in the file. Okay. The roadmap that I gave at the beginning was we were proceeding on Ms. Hughes' petition and intervention. When we conclude that, we will then argue Ms. Barrows's petition or motion to modify a possessory conservator. So we are still here on Ms. Hughes's petition and intervention. Now, if somebody asks the court to take notice, I have an obligation to note things that are in the file. I mean, there's no discretion in that. Is that fair enough, Ms. Hughes? Like we are not handling the motion to modify a possessory conservator until afterwards. The reason why I asked at the beginning for the roadmap is if we need to do two separate and distinct hearings, or if we're talking about the same witnesses, so we can do one and roll into the next one so I can reserve judgment, or if I had to rule on one before we picked up the second one. Does that make sense to everyone? So
it makes sense.
Okay, so we are not arguing. I'm not considering the motion to modify a possessory conservator right now. Right now, I'm considering the petition and intervention for termination of parental rights. Okay?
Okay.
But don't, Ms. Hughes, I am not stopping you from urging your objection when this concludes and then we address the motion to modify. Okay?
Thank you. I just wondering if in the interim, while we're all sitting in front of our computers, if somebody could send me the motion.
Ms. Hester sent it out again. I can check again in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Ms. Barrows, okay, can you re-ask that question since we took a break?
Oh, Your Honor, I just believe I had asked for you to take notice of the home study that has been approved by the state of California.
Okay, so noted.
And Mr. Leibovich, are there any other relatives that are available for placement for your nephew, Tyler?
Absolutely. My sister lives a couple miles from me and she is ready and willing and already has a child.
And she lives in California as well?
Los Angeles, California, correct.
And who else lives in your home?
Just me and Karen. We live together alone.
And you're asking that your visits be able to be continued, is that correct?
Absolutely.
And due to the recent COVID crisis, are you guys still able to be employed?
Yes.
Okay. And would you be able to continue to visit with your nephew?
Yes.
Okay. Have you done your own research on autism now that that was a diagnosis for your nephew?
Yes, absolutely. We have Facebook groups, we have resources set up, and we've watched many YouTube videos, as well as Karen's experience with her cousin for many years, who's already has autism.
And you and you've also talked to the foster parents, is that correct?
Yes, we've been getting a lot of tips and help from them on what Tyler likes, what he doesn't like. And we have a nice notebook with all that saved up.
And so have you also researched, you know, kind of schools or how the children learn that have autism?
We would actually need to get an IEP done where they would recommend the best placement for him. That's what we've learned through this process.
And did you have a visit today?
Yes, went great.
And where did that take place?
I forget the name, but it was local right here in Fort Worth.
And you flew in for the hearing today, is that correct?
Yes, we were under the belief that would be in person, so we did fly in today.
Okay. And do you have any other visits scheduled for this week since you did fly in from California?
I believe so. Not in person. Over Zoom.
And ma'am, Karen, I know this is kind of a weird thing, but if there's a witness, there's a witness. Cannot have anybody coaching or prompting a witness. So
Apologies.
I'm not upset. I know it's bizarre and it's very natural, but just as a reminder.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you heard Ms. Simeon testify that she would approve transporting the child to California, correct?
Yes, we were told.
Ms. Barros, there was an echo and a breakup. Can you repeat that question?
And you heard the testimony of Ms. Simeon that if the homestay is approved, that she would be able to transport your nephew to California. Is that correct?
Correct.
And would you be willing to help out in any transportation or whatever was needed to make that happen?
Absolutely would.
And you believe that would be in your nephew's best interest, correct?
I do think that, yes.
Past witness.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Sir, and again, I know this is kind of hard asking you a question with your wife right there. So if you don't know the answer, just let me know, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your wife is a nurse, right?
Correct.
Mr. Daniel, I'm going to stop for a second. I'm trying to clarify, his wife or I saw a pediatric partner?
I'm sorry. I'll rephrase that, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I should ask first, are the two of you married? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the answer.
Could you repeat that? I did not catch that.
Are you and Karen married?
We are engaged to be married on the 23rd of this month.
Okay. And how long a relationship do you have?
We're coming up on our 10th year now.
Okay. She's a nurse, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know how long she's been a nurse?
I believe it's 3 years now.
Okay. And you mentioned, I think, a relative who has autism. Who is that?
Karen's cousin. Her name is Noah.
Okay. Is that where does that child live?
The child lives in Israel right now.
Okay. All right. But she has been around that child. Is that correct?
Yes, she has multiple times.
Okay. Now, you've been researching autism and preparing for the possible transition. How long have you been working on that?
Since the home study, at least.
Okay. Do you know, can you give me a time period, like months? How many months?
I think November-ish.
Okay. And I know you came down here at least once before. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was that January, or was it before the beginning of the year?
I do not recall the exact date.
Okay.
I would have to pull it up.
Okay, well, that's okay. But you've been working pretty. Oh, let me rephrase that. You've been doing a lot of research and preparation in hopes that Tyler might be placed with you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And has part of that research and work included talking to the foster parents?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Do you remember the first time you talked to them by any chance?
We spoke during our last court date. We had an in-person visit with Tyler, and then we met with them the following day.
Okay, thank you. And did you tell them at that time that you were interested in having Tyler come live with you?
I believe we did, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Judge, I think that's all the questions I have.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes, Your Honor. We had an opportunity to speak late last month, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at the time, you had been looking into schooling for Tyler, correct?
Correct.
Okay, can you give us an update of where you're at with the Division of Special Education for that school?
So I'll just repeat myself again. We would have to do an evaluation. We were told that once the evaluation was done, we'd be recommended the best place for placement for Tyler.
Okay, and can they do that before you would be given the educational rights?
From what we were told, that we would have to do the evaluation first.
Okay, I was talking if you were to obtain Tyler, did they make any statements about you would have to have the educational rights to Tyler?
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe Lauren would retain the educational rights.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
if y'all were named the permanent managing conservators of Tyler, you would be given the educational rights, correct?
Oh, if we were to adopt, correct.
Well, if you were to be named permanent managing conservators of Tyler, though, you would be able to have the educational rights. Are you aware of that?
Yes, yes. Sorry, I'm just mixing it up here.
Okay. And with the school, whenever you checked it out, you were informed that you would have to have the educational rights prior to having an assessment and everything done, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know what? And it would have been, of course, a online or over the phone due to the COVID-19, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the estimated time for you to be able to get one of those scheduled?
I believe it's maybe 6 or 7 months.
Okay.
Or days, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So it's your testimony that it would be about 6 or 7 days, correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. And then were you aware that Ms. Moraz could possibly be, let's see here, is she possibly trying to do anything as far as the Family Medical Leave Act?
Yes.
Okay, do you know what that is?
She would be able to get medical leave and be able to stay at home and help.
Do you know if she's applied for that?
Yes.
Okay, and let's see here. Do you know if the medical insurance would be available for Tyler to be on if you were granted permanent managing conservatorship?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and that would also require for both of y'all or necessarily her to be able to have the right to make medical decisions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, pass the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Matthew, do you understand that if y'all are to raise Tyler, that it's to be a lifelong commitment, not just like raising a child till they're 18, but this will be raising a child till the day you die? Do you understand that?
We absolutely do. And I understand that, yes.
And what is your long-term permanency goal for Tyler? Are you wanting to adopt or do you just want custody?
I want to do whatever's best for Tyler. And so if we were to adopt him, I'm good with that. And I would like that.
Well, what is your choice?
My choice is to adopt.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no more questions.
Neighbors?
Yes, Judge, thank you. No questions for this witness.
Ms. Barros? Redirect.
Nothing further.
Mr. Daniel?
Nothing further.
Okay. Mr. Freeman?
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Let's call your next witness.
Karen, Ms. Rock?
Can you please raise your right hand? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Could you please state and spell your first and last name for the court reporter?
Karen Mizrahi, K-A-R-E-N-M-I-Z-R-A-H-I.
Okay. All right, Ms. Barros, please proceed.
And Karen, where are you currently employed?
At the Veterans Affairs Emergency Room.
And what is your position there at the Veterans Affairs?
I'm a registered nurse.
And you have received information from the caseworker and probably the attorney ad litem for Tyler that the child is autistic. Is that correct?
Yes.
And have you researched autism and how to handle autism and autistic kids?
Yeah. Part of a Facebook group, a couple of Facebook groups in regards to autism, been doing some research. And again, I have my cousin who's about 8 years old, also autistic. So I got a lot of information from my aunt as well.
Okay. And there's been a home study done on your home. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you and Matthew were willing and able to take Tyler. Is that correct?
Yes.
And have you also had scheduled visitation, Zoom visits and in-person visits with Tyler?
Yes. We've been doing Zoom visits twice a week since the last court case. And then we had an in-person visit today.
And how did that visit go?
Went well. I think Tyler responded well to us. So.
And going forward, you're willing to, if allowed, have the child in your home. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there's been a room that's been set up for him as well, correct?
Yes.
And as far as medical treatment or education, that would be something that you and Matthew would decide based on the court's ruling. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Simeon said there would be possibly a transportation on a plane. Would you and Matthew be willing to do what you need to do to make sure Tyler feels safe on the plane?
Yes, definitely.
Pass the witness.
Mr. Daniel?
No, I don't think I have any questions, Your Honor. I'll pass.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes, ma'am. You've applied for FMLA, correct?
I've not applied yet.
Okay, you have not applied yet. Okay.
I need paperwork saying that I have Tyler in custody prior to applying.
Okay, so that could take a little bit of time, correct?
I have 30 days from when we get Tyler, and I've already spoken to my managers as well as HR, who's in charge of FMLA, and they said as soon as we get Tyler, just let them know and they'll get the paperwork done.
Okay, all right, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes?
I have no questions.
Ms. Neighbors?
You've applied for FMLA, is that right? Or you haven't yet?
I have not yet, no.
Okay, so how much time will you get under the FMLA for your workplace?
So for assimilation, when he first comes in, I get 30 days. And then after that, when I get a doctor to sign off on Tyler, because he does have autism, they do grant, I'm not exactly sure how much time, but any days that I need off, they will grant me, they said. So.
Are you currently working?
Yes.
I think with the VA, do you have to work 40 hours a week?
It's 80 hours in a 2-week pay period.
Okay. And do you do 12-hour shifts?
Yes, it'll be 3 12-hour shifts and 1 8-hour shift in a 2-week pay period, or I guess 6 12 hours and 1
Okay.
8.
So do you anticipate that there may be a gap between your FMLA and when the schools reopen in California?
I'm not sure. I thought I was reading that schools might reopen next week, but I still have to look into that. So.
What is your plan for childcare?
Right now, I've contacted our local district for LAUSD. They said to call them as soon as we get documentation saying that Tyler is in our custody, and then they will put in paperwork for an IEP. They said it would take 7 to 10 business days. And then after that, they don't know yet because of COVID if it would be in person or video chat to perform the IEP. They also said it would help speed up the process if we got the IEP done in Texas, faxed over to them.
Okay, so do you anticipate that there could be a gap in between then and when your FMLA runs out?
I didn't think, no, I don't think so. I have at least 3 months that I could take as far as FMLA goes.
What kind of backup care would it look like if you needed to use it?
What do you mean by that?
Do you have someone who would take care of Tyler?
So we do have Matthew's sister, Esther. We have my sister, who they all live nearby, and my mother as well.
Because you have a good support system out there.
Yes.
And just generally, it may be a loaded question, but why are you willing to take on Tyler and be his caregivers?
Because he's family. I think the last thing we want is for Tyler to grow up wondering why his family didn't want him, which isn't the case. We've been here since we found out everything was going on.
Thank you. Past witness.
Ms. Burrows?
No further questions of this witness.
Mr. Daniel?
No further questions.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes, ma'am. Underneath FMLA, when you're awarded it, do you still get paid time off during the FMLA, or is it only if you would have time available to take off?
From my understanding, I get paid for it as long as I have time available to take off.
Okay. All right. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes?
No questions.
Neighbors?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Barrows?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Daniel?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Barrows, please call your next witness.
I'll call Mom, Bobby Diarra.
Call who?
My client.
Okay.
Bob.
I think her microphone's off.
There we go.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Mr. Guerrero, if you can please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. You can lower your hand. All right, could you please, do you have her mom's spelling? All right. All right. Ms. Barrows, please proceed.
Ms. Diarra, where are you currently living?
I live at 4024 Diamond Lock West in North Richland Hills, Texas.
Now, Tyler was born in 2017, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you removed your son in 2018, is that correct?
Yeah, in September of 2018.
And prior to that, you and your and the father had always lived in California, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So would you agree with me that your family support is in California, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any relatives in Tarrant County that would be helpful or could help take care of Tyler?
No, ma'am.
Now, there's been a home study on Matthew's home and Karen's home, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would like for your son Tyler to go to stay with family, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And why do you think that's in your son's best interest that your son be with family?
I think it's best for him to be with family because we all really love and care about him and we just want what's best for him. I mean, I would try to get him back myself, but I just think that would prolong this process and keep him away from family even longer than he's already been. Currently, I celebrated 1 year sober as of June 6th. I've been working for the same company since October, since I got out in October, which is a nonprofit. But I'm still waiting for your client, Andrew, to get out of prison, and he should be out in July. And I think it would just be appropriate at this time if Matthew and Karen were to, look out for Tyler, and once Andrew gets out, then we have an opportunity to get, not just me, but him too, to have a chance to get his footing back in. I just don't want, I don't know. This has all been really difficult and really stressful.
And you've been visiting with your son, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And he's bonded to you, is that correct?
Oh, yes. There's no doubt that he knows that I'm his mom. Yeah.
And he's also visiting with Matthew and Karen, correct?
Yes. He did very well in today's visit. I think Matthew reminds him of Andrew, and there was like a little bit of a connection there. And as well as Karen, just being a female, I think he's very lovey. But he did well today. It's not like he cried or threw a fit or anything like that. He had a very good visit today.
And as far as the diagnosis of autism, have you also researched autism and how to
Speech
communicate?
therapy. Yeah, speech therapy, autism. I too have a relative who I grew up with who was autistic, and my aunt actually was living in Texas at the time when her son was diagnosed with autism. So she actually put me in touch with some support groups, and also just kind of sent me in the right direction on who to go to get help from childcare and stuff like that for him.
Okay. And are you confident in Matthew and Karen making those decisions on behalf of your son, their nephew?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you believe at this time that that's what's best for your son, correct?
Yes.
Pass witness.
Daniel?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Mr. Guerra, when we were in court before originally, you were actually serving some time in the Tarrant County Jail, I think, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've been out for some time now, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Since October 15th.
Okay. So I think we were in court just about 2 weeks before that, weren't we?
Yes.
Okay. And just kind of comparing yourself today to then, to say beginning of October, would you say you're a lot better off today than you were then?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I feel like it was definitely quite an experience. I mean, I've never been incarcerated before, so it definitely put me on the right track. And I think the IDT drug treatment program that I went through really helped.
Okay, very good. You've been employed for, I guess, over 6 months now, 6 or 7 months?
Yes,
Okay.
I work at a nonprofit.
Okay, and you have been sober for over a year now, just over a
Yes.
year. Okay, right. And at this point, you would like for your son to go live with Matt and Karen, who just testified a few minutes ago, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Judge, I think that's all the questions I have of her.
Freeman?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes?
Yes, Your Honor. Do you believe that the foster parents have done a good job taking care of your child?
Absolutely.
I have no more questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Neighbors?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Burrows?
No questions.
Mr. Daniel?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Freeman?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Burrows, please call your next witness.
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
Mr. Daniel, witnesses or exhibits?
No, sir.
Mr. Freeman?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so I'm going to combine closings for both matters. All right. So at this point, but almost 3:30. I mean, we've been at this for about an hour and a half. Let's just take a short recess. All right, just about 10 minutes. So 12 minutes. So I just come back at 3:40. All right, and then we can resume. This way people use the restroom if they need to.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then when we come back, we're just going to roll into Ms. Barrows' motion.
Hey, Robin. Okay, we just took a break from the hearing. I thought I'd give you a call just to make sure I got with you today. Yes, and yeah, yeah. Well, I think all in all, he would like to have his daughter, with him. Apparently, he hasn't seen her. He said 3 birthdays now, so at least 3 years. Yeah. So he, and that's because the mom apparently is, not really allowed anything. Although there is an order in place from the 325th. So here's the other thing, just real quick. I was appointed after publication, and so.
Hey, Raymond, Raymond, you have your microphone on, we can hear.
In his request for counsel.
Raymond.
He had it. I told him to send it to me. I still haven't gotten it yet. So, I'm not even positive I'm going to be at the attorney tomorrow, but I'm still proceeding like I will be. Okay. So. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So. Yeah. Oh, well, okay. I couldn't remember. Okay. told me he has what I consider a pretty good job, at least like $15 an hour. Our work, yes, that's right, yeah. So, that's 30,000 a year, but I don't know how the judge looks at that. I'm sure she has some little magical formula back there. I'm hoping he'll get that to me. And what I'm gonna do, we're not set till tomorrow afternoon, I believe. So if I get it tonight, I'm gonna send it to Daniel and I'll send it to you and the other council too, okay? But just let the judge look. He can get the judge. I don't want to send it directly to her. Hopefully she'll appoint me, and that's what, tomorrow I'll be asking for custody for him. He lives in either a trailer home or a mobile home or something on his uncle's property. His uncle is not much older than me. It's like 60, it's 62 or 3, I think. But he's retired or he's on disability or something.
All right. See all the attorneys here. Barrows, Freeman, Mr. Daniel is here. Okay. I think Miss Neighbor. Okay. Yeah, all the positions on the screen switched up. So, all right. So we are back on the record on Leibovich, and then we're back from recess. And now we're to proceed, having concluded the petition and intervention. Now we're here on Ms. Barrows's motion to modify possessory conservator. All right. So at this point, Ms. Hughes, you had urgent objection.
Your Honor, I withdraw that objection. I've received Ms. Barrow's motion and I'm ready to proceed.
Okay. All right. Okay, Ms. Barrows. Did you want to make any openings or?
And Your Honor.
Kind of addressed during the opening for Ms. Hughes.
Okay. Well, Your Honor, just for clarification as well, because a lot of, because we have some new parties, that you did not have a ruling from your trial in the termination trial. So I filed a motion to modify based on the last temporary orders because you did not make a ruling because, and I was looking at my notes, you were wanting the family, if there was an option for the child to be placed with family, that we try that.
Correct.
And that's what we've done. And we've done that as expeditiously as we can with the home study on Matthew and Karen. So that's what I was going forward on today, since the home study has been approved by the department.
All right. Okay, so I'm not discounting what you said. I guess right now you have your motion to modify the temporary orders. So do we want to proceed with that, or like this is just the court. So if there's things that need to be heard, I'm here to hear things.
Well, that's what I would be proceeding on. And just a reminder that there has been no final ruling.
That is correct. The docket entry says that on October 1st, there was a final trial and termination. Court takes under advisement, waiting California's approval for placement. And we had some other docket entries subsequent. Okay, so Ms. Barrows, please call your first witness.
Okay, I'll call Matthew Leibovich.
Mr. Leibovich, you've been previously sworn in on this matter. All right, Ms. Barrows, please proceed.
And Matthew, could you please state your name?
Matthew Leibovich.
And your relationship to Tyler is uncle, is that correct?
Correct.
And you currently live in California, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, did you attend the final trial?
Yes.
And after the final trial, did you agree to have a home study done on your home?
Yes.
And did you have conversations with the department about conducting that home study?
Yes.
Now, the home study was completed in, do you remember when?
I believe it was December.
Okay. Was there any delay in that process?
There was a small delay.
And what was the delay?
I believe, I cannot recall what it was, but I can get it to you if you like after this.
So did it take time for the for Texas to communicate with California about starting the home study?
Yes, there was a delay on the Texas side, if I remember that correctly.
Was resolved, and then a home study was done on your home. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Karen lives in your home with you. Is that correct?
Also correct.
And anyone else, family members that live in your home in California?
No, just us two.
And you have a room for your nephew. Is that correct?
We moved just so we can have the extra room.
Okay. And how many rooms do you have?
It's a 2-bedroom.
Okay. And will he have his own room?
Yes.
And as a backup caregiver, if you or Karen are unavailable, who would be watching Tyler?
It would be between my sister, Karen's mother, or Karen's sister. So we have 3 backups at least.
And did California review references and other family members in preparing their home study?
Yes.
Did they also run a criminal background check?
Yes, I think so.
And was there also a check on any kind of CPS history that anyone had that was in the home?
Yes, of course.
And to your knowledge, was the home study completed and sent to Texas?
Yes, it was.
And did you have conversations with Lauren Simeon about the home study?
Yes.
And was the home study approved by the state, by Texas, by the department?
Yes.
Now, as far as autism, I believe we talked about that earlier, but have you done research of how to care for a child who's autistic?
Yes, done some research.
And your nephew has been diagnosed with autism.
Can you repeat that, please? Things broke up for a second.
Your nephew has been diagnosed with autism, is that correct?
Correct.
And have you talked to the foster family and to CPS about the diagnosis that your nephew has?
Yes, I have.
Now, Tyler is only 3, is that correct?
Correct.
And so he's not really school age yet, is that correct?
Also correct.
And as far as preschool programs for autistic children, is that an option in your area in California?
Ms. Barrows, I'm going to interrupt. So I generally stay out of objections except for the asked and answered. And so I know we've covered the last 3 or 4 questions, including this one we've covered already. If you can move on, as long as they're not things that are already addressed or presented before the court, then, all right, thank you.
And let's see. And you're currently staying in a hotel and you are here in Texas, is that correct?
Yes, right here in Fort Worth.
Okay. And you're willing to stay here until as long as necessary to make sure that the transition, if ordered by this court, is smooth for your nephew to be able to leave Texas to go to California, is that correct?
100% absolutely correct.
And have you and Karen spoken to your employers to make sure that you have the appropriate time off in order to bond with your nephew?
Yes, all pre-approved already.
Okay. And I think there were questions earlier about FMLA with different employers and I think Karen's employer specifically, but that's an option for Karen to have time off. Is that correct?
Correct.
And both of you have a plan for the education and medical decisions for your nephew. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
You are bonded with your nephew, correct?
Correct.
And both your brother and Bobby believe that it's in their son's best interest that your nephew be with you guys instead of in foster care. Is that correct?
Correct. Both individually confirmed. Correct.
Okay. And you're asking for a placement of the child with you and Karen in California, correct?
Correct.
Last witness.
Mr. Daniel,
Your Honor, I don't have any questions.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes, Your Honor. Are you currently employed?
Right now, I am not unemployed due to the COVID circumstances.
Okay, pass the witness.
Ms. Hughes,
No questions, Your Honor.
okay, Ms. Neighbors,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Barrows.
Matthew, are you financially able to care for Tyler in your home?
Absolutely.
No further questions.
Mr. Daniel,
No questions.
Mr. Freeman,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes,
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Neighbors.
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Barrows, please call your next witness.
Ms. Mizrahi? Could you state your name, please?
Karen Mizrahi.
And you're wanting Tyler to come and live with you and Matthew, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, you were asked some questions earlier about the FMLA, is that correct?
Yes.
And have you obtained information from your place of employment about the amount of time you would be able to have off to bond with Tyler?
So I already contacted my work prior to coming to this court case because I knew that we may or may not, Tyler might come back. And they said I have 30 days to invoke FMLA. I have 30 days for assimilation. And then again, I have my own sick leave and annual leave that I can use for the FMLA.
And would you guys have appropriate medical health insurance for the child?
Yeah, he'd be added onto my health insurance at Kaiser Permanente.
And you visited with Tyler, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're wanting him to be placed with you and Matthew, correct?
Correct.
Pass the witness.
Daniel,
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, ma'am. How many hours do you currently have, just an estimation of sick leave and paid leave?
I have I want to say at least 500 hours right now.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
Ms. Hughes,
No questions.
Ms. Neighbors,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Barrows,
No further questions.
Mr. Daniel.
No further questions.
Ms. Barrows, please call your next witness.
Call Lauren Simeon.
Ms. Simeon, you've previously been sworn in. Ms. Barrows, please proceed.
Ms. Simeon, did you order an ICPC home study for Matthew Leibovich?
Yes.
And do you remember when that was approximately?
I don't remember the date, but I do know it was around the end of November 2019.
And when did you receive the home study?
The home study back approved?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the date at this moment, but
Was it several months ago?
it was several months ago. I believe it was around January or February.
So you've had the home study from California since maybe January or February, is that correct?
Correct.
And the foster parents have intervened in the case just last month, is that correct?
Correct.
And there's also been delays in this case due to COVID, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you recall that we were set as well for court in May about the status of the case. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we weren't able to go forward, unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic since March, correct?
That's correct.
And you've observed the child with Matthew and Karen, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you believe that the child is bonded to them?
Yes.
You had no safety concerns for the child while they were visiting with their uncle and soon-to-be aunt, is that correct?
Correct.
Have you also had conversations with Matthew and Karen about their home?
Yes, I have.
And have you also had conversations with them about their plans for caring for an autistic child at their home in California?
Yes, I have.
And are you satisfied with their plan for Tyler going forward?
Yes.
Now, you testified earlier that you would be able to possibly transport the child to California, is that correct?
That's correct.
And when would that happen?
The earliest that we could transport him due to having the plane tickets approved would be Thursday of this week.
Okay. And would Matthew and Karen be allowed to travel on the same plane with you guys?
Yes.
And have you had conversations with Matthew and Karen about that?
I have not had a conversation with them, but I did explain, well, I didn't tell them that they could ride the plane with us, but I did explain that the earliest he could come home Thursday this week.
Okay, can you say that last part? There was interference.
Oh, sorry. I did explain that the earliest that I would be able to transport him would be Thursday this week.
And as far as the medical treatment that Tyler has received in CPS care, would there be records that Matthew and Karen could receive?
Yes.
And how would you get those records to them?
I would give them copies of the records.
Okay, and would you do that before you left before you left Texas, or would that be at a later date?
I can give them to them before I leave Texas. Sorry.
And you heard the testimony of the foster mother. The child's on no medications, really, is that correct?
Correct.
And there's no follow-up treatment that's needed with any doctors here in Texas, is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as the quarantine for the child, if that is something that is in the orders, that would be something that, of course, Matthew and Karen and the family would adhere to, correct?
Correct.
Now, have you met and reviewed the home study?
Yes, I have.
Is it on file with the court?
Yes.
And did you approve it, the home study, you and your supervisor?
Yes, we have.
I believe it's in Tyler's best interest to be placed with family members.
Yes.
And would you be asking that the child be placed with his uncle and soon-to-be aunt?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
Daniel?
Don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Freeman?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes?
Question.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Barros, please call your next witness.
I'll call bio mom, Bobby.
Okay.
I think she needs to open her, yeah.
Ms. Diagaro? Okay. Please proceed. Ms. Diagaro, you've previously been sworn in. Ms. Barros, please proceed.
Ms. Daguerre, I filed a motion to modify and asking that your son be placed with Matthew and Karen. Are you in agreement with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any concerns about the child being placed there?
No, ma'am.
And do you believe that they'd be able to care for your son and be able to make educational and medical decisions on behalf of him?
Yes, ma'am.
And financially, do you believe that they would be able to support Tyler?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you talked to the father, Andrew?
Yes, ma'am.
And is he on board with Matthew and Karen having Tyler?
Yes, ma'am.
Pass witness.
Mr. Daniel,
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Freeman,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Hughes,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Neighbors.
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Barrows, please call your next witness.
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
All right. So you rest?
Yes.
All right. Yes, Mr. Daniel, any witnesses?
No, sir.
Mr. Freeman,
No, Your Honor.
all right. Ms. Hughes,
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Neighbors.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Closing arguments all around. This is before rendition. Start with you, Ms. Barrows.
Me first.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, we were set for a termination trial on October 1st, 2019. The original trial date was, dismissal date was October 7th, 2019. We have had in December, if you recall, there was no ruling made after the final trial. The attorney ad litem had a motion to reopen additional evidence. And even at that time in December, Your Honor, we talked about the home study being done, that there were continued delays in this case, that there have been family members available since the beginning from California. This is where the family was from. We also had a judicial review hearing as well. We talked about the home study again. And then we had another judicial review hearing that was set in March, but due to COVID, we couldn't bring this up to the court that, hey, judge, there's a home study done. This home study has been approved. And all of these delays have constantly put Tyler remaining in foster care. Then in May of just last month, the foster parents intervened in this case. And we are asking, Your Honor, at this time that you accept the approved home study that's been on file with this court and filed with this court. And so that this child can be with family, that he can be surrounded by loved ones in California, that he can hang out with his uncle and with his aunt and go to their wedding and be with his other aunt that lives just down the street. This is about reunification. It's tough that being a foster parent, a first-time foster parent, man, you get bonded to those kids, and we appreciate what you've done. But unfortunately, there's been family along the way that is willing and able to take care of this sweet little 3-year-old little boy who's spent half of his life in the system. And we want him out of the system. We want him with family. And if things don't work out with mom and dad and they can't get it together, then, you know, Matthew and Karen are more than willing to do what they need to step in and adopt this little boy. We're asking today that you rule in our favor and accept the home study that has been approved.
Mr. Daniel.
Yes, Your Honor. I would join Ms. Barrows in virtually everything she said. And Your Honor, I would like to specifically point out that this would keep the child within the family. And I would like for you to grant that so that this child can be placed with his uncle and soon to be aunt. And also, Judge, we're still kind of pending on the termination trial from last October. So you heard today that my client is way better off than she was back on October 1st, that she has a job and has had for about 6 or 7 months, that she's been sober for a year. To terminate the rights on someone like that would not be appropriate, in my opinion. I would ask that you not terminate her rights today, not terminate the rights of the father, and grant on the temporary hearing, grant the order placing the child with the uncle and soon to be aunt in California. Thank you.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, Your Honor. In December, there was a motion on file placed by me that denied a motion to reopen evidence. Therefore, I feel it's important for the court to understand that if you can't open up evidence as far as the termination, then the evidence that's been given here today as far as non-termination shouldn't have as much effect as it was whenever we were denied it back in December. Ms. Barrows makes a good argument. Children in the system sometimes gets lost. They do. However, in this case, the system did not fail this child. The system had a good placement throughout the whole entire time. The child's been placed with the same family for the last 20 months. They've nurtured, they've been there for every cough, sneeze. They've been there through diagnoses, and they've thrown themselves into this child in the best interest of this child. I have no doubts that if the child's ordered out to California, that they would be around family members. It seems like there's a support staff there. However, the interveners also have a support staff here. They have family, they have friends, they have a church community that's holistically wrapped themselves around Tyler. Either way, Tyler is going to be in a better position than if he was lost in the system. You know, we do have a family out in California. Matt and Karen seem to be very good people. They've done the research necessary to move forward. However, just to move them over as quickly as possible without having everything set forth in place, which I believe they testified that it could possibly be done, but they would have to have those rights and those standings first to be able to do it. So I would urge the court to take that into consideration before just up and moving within the same week. I don't think there's any right and wrong answer in this, Your Honor. We have competing families and they're both good families. And I believe Tyler at this point is going to be in good hands regardless. Thank you.
Ms. Hughes?
Thank you, Your Honor. Tyler is a child with special needs, and that special need is autism. And he has spent over half his life with my clients. And it is their position, and my position as well, that he does not need any change in his circumstances or routine. I'm asking the court to deny Ms. Barrows' motion.
Ms. Neighbors?
Thank you, Judge. Fortunately, we find ourselves in the unique situation where we have people fighting for a child who are going to equally love him and support him. I am incredibly thankful to have these choices for Tyler. I think that it is, you know, a testament to their love and capacity that the Ingebrigtsens are here with their intervention. I think that it is a testament to the love and capacity for family that Mr. Leibovich and Ms. Rahi are here fighting for Tyler. I'm happy to see that there are so many people fighting to love a child who needs to be loved. It is not an easy decision that OCOK makes to recommend placement from such a wonderful foster family, but that is our position. And, you know, we do try to go with family. I do think that I rely on my predecessor and what I know about this case to think that I believe that we did prove our case back in October as to termination. Really just the question here, I think, is where Tyler goes now. And I think that he has two great options, and my client is willing and able to facilitate a transport to California, and are hoping that if he does go to California, we have the opportunity to monitor this placement under ICPC regulations for at least 6 months and make sure that everything goes well for him there. But I think that we are, you know, I think it is really a testament to the love that this child experiences that we have two great choices for him today.
Then we're back to Ms. Barrows. So the court, having considered the competent evidence presented in this matter, just put everything in perspective. The trial was in October. So there was a question of what we should do. This court declined to terminate at that time because the greatest concern was following what the law requires, which is placing a child with family if possible. Not knowing what the placement was like in California, this court took it under advisement and to wait for California to complete their ICPC home study. So looking over my notes, having presided over that hearing, I'm relying on my past notes from October as somewhat guidance on how to proceed today. The intent was clear to this court at that time that if relatives were an appropriate placement, that is where the child needed to go. I think the record reflects that. What I want to say to the Ingebrigtsens is that as foster parents, you are clearly one of the most unappreciated and under-recognized members of our community. I absolutely admire foster parents with a sincerity that I could never explain, of your ability to open your hearts and your homes to what is at one point a stranger, knowing that relationships and bonds will grow without certainty of what happens. That is not something that me or my wife could ever do. And for that, I am in awe of any family that can do so or even begin that process. But the law is very clear that children must be placed with family, if possible, and removing children from families to be considered only as a last resort. There are times when this law, this preference, doesn't seem fair, but my oath is to follow the law, and I have clear direction on what I need to do. I have no doubt in my mind that you two as fosters are wonderful parents. This decision today is not based on deciding if the fosters or the Ingebrigtsens are good parents or not, if they could have done anything better or not. This is not about you. This is about Tyler and his DNA. It's the biology that counts, and thus what the law says. And so I am bound therein by that law. So seeing as there is an appropriate relative placement, I think this court is bound to place Tyler with a biological relative in California, seeing as how California has approved the home study. Now, I do understand the pleadings do say both Matthew and Karen. Karen, unfortunately, at this point, you are not a relative. You are what's considered fictive kin to Tyler. Okay? I understand the wedding is around the corner. But at this point, there is no legal or biological tie to Tyler. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to order Matthew Leibovich as the sole managing conservator and Andrew Leibovich and Bobby Diaguero as joint possessory conservators. There will be child support ordered in the amount of minimum wage, with Mr. Leibovich's child support not to commence until August 1 of 2020, since he is currently incarcerated in TDC and unable to pay. Now, that being said, certainly it's better, Karen, if you are there in Tyler's life on a daily basis, you certainly do want things to be modified so you do have the legal rights and privileges that a mother would with you being married. There are really two options. One, I don't know how long you're in Texas, but if you get married, then within the next 30 days, I can amend these orders so that it includes you. I have jurisdiction for 30 days from today. After that, you actually have to come back to court and refile and replead for any kind of modification. Other than that, I can amend it just on my own if that's the case. And I'm open to the idea just because I think it's better for Tyler in the long run. To the Ingebrigtsens, I'm in awe. I mean, I know what I'm saying is devastating, not to a little degree, but probably to a large degree, that you are committing everything. And I want to let you know how much of my respect that you have. But the law is clear what I must follow. Texas law is not favorable to non-relatives and fosters and grandparents. Any lawyer who practices family law will tell you that. And so I'd be lying if I didn't say my heart breaks a little bit for you today, okay? That's not lost on me, but I do have a duty to follow. Right, so is there anything the parties that I've missed in this? I guess termination is denied, sole managing to Matthew Leibovich, joint possessory to bio mom and dad. With no, I mean, at this point, with the way it is now, with what I've seen at trial, I understand that mom has straightened up her life, but at this point, with the child in California, there was no argument that I would think that would justify the possession and access to the child. Well, we've been doing mom, right? That's what the department's been doing?
Yes.
So we'll just continue that. Whatever the department's been doing under temporary orders, we'll continue that for mom. But if I remember from the trial, there wasn't a whole lot about if there's no termination and how to modify the possession access. Okay, so we'll continue with mom and dad, whatever the department had for temporary orders. Okay, anything that I've missed? All right, that'll be the order of the court. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Daniel.
Yes.
Hey, so I didn't want to call you out in front of everybody, but your microphone on your laptop is on the front of your keyboard. So every time you shuffled papers, it would cut out all our audio.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, but I don't want to embarrass you in front of everyone else.
Okay.
So, but I just want to mention that in other hearings, you may want to be cognizant of that. So just don't let anything touch the front of your keyboard and you'll be fine.
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
make sure it doesn't. Thank you, Judge. I appreciate
No
it.
problem. Have a good day.
You too.